Fourth sampling technique under the non-random sampling method is the snowball sampling. It is where research participants recruit other participants for a test or study. It is used where potential participants are hard to find. It is a technique where one or more members of a population are located and used to lead the researchers to other members of the population. It's called snowball sampling because, in theory, once you have the ball rolling picks up more snow along the way and becomes larger and larger. Number 5. Voluntary sampling. It is a technique when sample are composed of respondents who are self-select into the study or survey. Most of the time, samples have a strong interest in the topic of study, that's they opt to volunteer to be part of that study. This tutorial is very detailed, complete and comprehensive that will let you understand how statistics really works from basic to advanced. So, for this video we will going to discuss all about sampling techniques. Just like what we have discussed before, a sample is a group in a research study on which information is obtained, while a population is a group to which the results of the study are intended to apply. In almost all of the researches, the sample is smaller than a population, since researchers rarely have access to all the members of the population. One of the most important steps in research process is to select the research sample of individuals who will participate as a part of the study. Sampling refers to the process of selecting these individuals. There are actually generally two types of sampling: the random sampling and the non-random sampling. Let's start with the random sampling. Random sampling is a process whose members had an equal chance of being selected from the population, also called as probability sampling. Under the random sampling, we have simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling and the cluster sampling. So, let's discuss each of it. Number 1. Simple random sampling. It is a process of selecting n sample size in the population via random numbers or through lottery. It is a subset of individuals chosen from a larger set. Each individual is chosen randomly and entirely by chance, such that each individual has the same probability of being chosen at any stage during the sampling process. Number 2. Systematic sampling. It is a process of selecting a kth element with a fixed and periodic interval in the population until the desired number of subjects or respondents is attained. This interval is called the sampling interval and calculated by dividing the population size by the desired number size. Number 3. Stratified sampling. On stratified sampling, we are subdividing the population into subgroups or what we call the strata or drawing members at random from each subgroup or stratum. In statistical surveys, when subpopulations within an overall population vary, it could be advantageous to sample each subpopulation independently. Number 4. Cluster sampling. This cluster sampling is all about selecting clusters from a population which is very large or widely spread out over a wide geographical area. An example of cluster sampling is area sampling or geographical cluster sampling. Each cluster is a geographical area. Because a geographically dispersed population can be expensive to survey, greater economy than simple random sampling can be achieved by grouping several respondents within a local area into a cluster. That's all for the random sampling. Again, we have 4. The simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling and the cluster sampling. Let's now move on to the second type of the sampling technique, which is the non-random sampling. Non-random sampling is a sampling procedure where samples selected in a deliberate manner with little or no attention to randomization. Again, take note on the idea of little to no attention to randomization. This is also called a non-probability sampling. Little to no attention to randomization doesn't mean it is a bad thing, it is just that no randomization is required for some of the researches that this technique is applied for. Under the non-random sampling, we have 6 types of the sampling methods. They are the convenience sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling, voluntary sampling, and judgment sampling. Let's discuss each of them now. Number 1. Convenience sampling. It is a process of selecting a group on individuals who, conveniently, are available for study. They are probably the nearest or the most available and convenient person for you to be asked as your research respondents. A researcher may include close friends and clients to be included in the sample population as long as they are qualified and fit to be respondents of the study. Number 2. Purposive sampling. Purposive sampling is a process of selecting based from judgment to select a sample which the researcher believed, based on prior information, will provide the data they need. The advantage of purposive sampling is that the researcher's judgment may be in error. He or she may not be correct in estimating the representativeness of a sample or their expertise regarding the information needed. As an example of purposive sampling is when a human resource director interviews a qualified applicant in a supervisory position. Qualified applicants are selected by HR directors based on his own judgment. Number 3. Quota sampling. This sampling technique is applied when an investigator survey collects information from an assigned number or quota of individuals from one of several sample units, fulfilling certain prescribed criteria or belonging to one stratum. Their popular advantage is that they are cheaper to administer. Let's have an example for this. When the respondents are composed of men aged 30 or 20 people who have bought cellular phones last week, it is in the interviewer's discretion which men or cellular phone buyers they select. That's it for quota sampling. Fourth sampling technique under the non-random sampling method is the snowball sampling. It is where research participants recruit other participants for a test or study. It is used where potential participants are hard to find. It is a technique where one or more members of a population are located and used to lead the researchers to other members of the population. It's called snowball sampling because, in theory, once you have the ball rolling, picks up more snow along the way and becomes larger and larger. Number 5. Voluntary sampling. It is a technique when samples are composed of respondents who are self-select into the study or survey. Most of the time, samples have a strong interest in the topic of study, that's they opt to volunteer to be part of that study. Last non-random sampling is the judgment sampling. This is a technique when the researcher relies on his or her personal sound judgment in choosing to participate in the study, or the sample selected is based on the opinion of an expert. As an example, in a study wherein a researcher wants to know what it takes to be a top-notcher in a bar examination, the only people who can give the researcher first-hand information are the individuals who are bar top-notcher themselves. That's all the different types of sampling techniques. Again, as a review, we have two general divisions, the random and the non-random sampling techniques. Under the random sampling, we have simple, systematic, stratified, and cluster sampling. Under the non-random sampling, we have the convenience, purposive, quota, snowball, voluntary and the judgment sampling. I think that's it for now. That concludes our video tutorial for today. That is the different sampling techniques used in the study of statistics. I hope you learned something from this video. Our next video tutorial will be all about methods of collecting and presenting a data. If you have some questions to ask, you may comment them below. And if you also want to notice you through shout out, never hesitate to request on the comment section, my friend. I will be happy to notice you.